How's it going, everyone? In today's video, I'm going to show you how to change the oil in your Volkswagen Jetta. So this engine specifically is a TSI, a 1.4 liter turbo. I'm going to show you how to change the oil on this video. So we're going to go walk step by step. We're going to change the oil, change the filter, and get it all done. So stick around, I'll show you what you need. Let's do it. So probably the obvious part is you're gonna have to figure out how you're gonna get the vehicle in the air. So if you have a lift, obviously that's great, but you don't need one. You can use a simple floor jack with some jack safety stands. I definitely advise using safety stands if you're gonna go that method, but we're gonna raise it up. I'm not gonna go too high on this, on the lift, just so you guys can kind of get an idea of doing it, you know, with a jack and stands, and we'll do it the traditional way. So I'll come up just about a foot, same as you probably get with that, so I can illustrate it for you. And you're also gonna need your oil of choice. I don't wanna turn this into a debate on oil. You guys do your research, figure out which oil you wanna use. I'm using the Mobil 1 European car formula, and it says specifically for Volkswagen, Audi, Porsche, etc. Also gonna be using a Fram oil filter, and you'll wanna have yourself one of these. You don't necessarily need it, but if it ends up being tough to remove, this is a super handy tool, and it adjusts to multiple sizes. So you can pretty much get almost any oil filter off with this. I've used this and it's come in handy many times, but these Fram ones, that they have the grip on the end, makes it a little bit easier to remove after your changes. But again, do your research. You decide whether you want to use a Fram, what kind of oil, what you want to use, or if you want to stick all OEM, that's cool too. And let's get this up. We'll get a wrench. I'll tell you what size it is on the bottom on the oil pan to remove the oil, and we'll get going. Okay, so you can see that we have the vehicle up, and I am gonna use a crawler to get underneath the same way you guys would. Also, you'll want to use a 19 mil socket. I prefer to use a socket and ratchet with a 6-point socket. That way you don't run the risk of stripping anything if you use a wrench with 12 points or a socket with 12 points. You never know. Sometimes people crank these things on ridiculously. So our oil pan is under there. We'll get underneath and I'll show you what you got to do. All right, more than likely you're going to have a belly pan that's underneath here with a series of torque screws. Mine is already removed. Mine never came with one, so take that for what it is, but you're gonna have to remove your belly pan most likely so you can access the oil filter, which is right here in this location. And then over here is our oil drain bolt right there. So that's a 19 mil. Here's our oil filter. So get that belly pan off so you can access both. Let's go ahead and we'll remove our drain bolt so that we can drain it into our pan. One other thing I can recommend to you is to keep your pan close to the oil pan, just at least at first, so you know which direction it's going to be draining in, and so that it doesn't make a big mess everywhere. So I usually do like this, and then I'll lower it down. You know exactly where it's draining into, and you have a minimal mess. So we'll go ahead and we'll let that drain, and then we'll move on to the next step. So while your oil drains, and it depends on your preference on how long you want to let that drain for, you can be strategic and move your oil pan up enough to where it is over top of your oil filter as well, so that you can loosen your oil filter, because oil is also going to come out of here. You can let both drain at the same time. So we'll remove our oil filter. If you can't remove it, like I said, with just your hand, you can go ahead and use a tool, but you should be able to grab it and turn it like this. So here we are with the oil filter. We'll go ahead and turn it, and like I said, it's going to drip out, so just be ready for it. With your oil pan, and right now we're draining both the oil out of the oil pan and out of this filter housing here. Next, we can remove our oil filter. Just be conscious that there's going to be oil in the oil filter when you remove it. So I typically like to lift it out like that and dump the oil into your oil pan. So we'll let that drain out a little bit more, and then we can reinstall our new oil filter after. All right, so now that our old oil filter is removed and it has stopped dripping, we can go ahead and install our new one. We'll spin it on, and we will snug this down hand tight. So you don't want it to be loose, but you just want it to be snugged by hand. Nothing more, nothing less, but just snugged down like that. Don't go ballistic on it, but you don't want it to come loose again. Just snugged down hand tight. Then we can move on to putting in our drain bolt on the oil pan. So here we are with our drain bolt. We'll go ahead and insert it, put it in by finger tight. So you want to make sure that you're not cross-threading it. So make sure it bottoms out finger tight first, and then go ahead and put your ratchet on here. You can probably find the official torque spec, but honestly, you just don't want to go crazy on this thing. Again, just snug
but luckily it's a steel oil pan, so it's not going to strip as easy as an aluminum one, but you don't want to go crazy on this. Just snug and then you're good. All right, so our bolt's tight, our new oil filter's on here and tight. Let's get out from under here and we can go up top. So now that we're up top, here's our old oil and we are going to install our new oil. So we'll go ahead, we'll pour this in, and then we can also put this back in this empty jug and dispose of this properly afterwards. So let's go ahead and fill this engine with oil. So on the top of the engine, you will see your fill cap. So we'll remove this counterclockwise. Now we'll fill the engine with oil. You can use a funnel, or if you have good aim and you can do it sideways like this, you can also do it this way. And let's put this jug in. It should take, for the better part, most of this 5-quart jug. Just double check your oil, but you should be safe putting in the 5 quarts. And double check that your level's good. You do still have to start the engine so that the oil can go into the oil filter and the level will drop. So just keep that in mind. But we are good. We'll go ahead and put the dipstick back in. We'll reinstall our oil cap and then we can start it and double check our level. With the vehicle now on the ground, we'll go ahead and start it, let it run for about 30 seconds, and then we'll check the oil again. Okay, so after letting the vehicle sit for about a minute or two, now we'll go ahead and recheck our oil level. So we'll wipe it off clean, reinsert our dipstick fully. We'll check our oil level, and we are perfect. We are right at the top of the full mark, if you can see right there. So right at the very top. Sometimes you'll get a little bit of residue up here, but you notice that there is a gap of oil there. So that is just stuff that kind of gets on the stick. But like I said, I'll show you one more time. You'll reinsert it, and you'll look to where you see solid amount of oil, which is right to the top of our full mark. You'll, like I said, you'll get some residue up here, but that is your oil line there. So we're good to go, and we're all done. All right, guys, so that is the oil change on one of these Volkswagen Jettas. This is a TSI 1.4 liter turbo. So fairly straightforward. I hope you guys found that informative. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. We got a lot more on the way, and we have a lot of project vehicles in the background too, which we have as well on this channel and our other channels as well. So anyways, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next video.